Coming up today on Eagle Eyes on Tech, Hasan Abi has finally been suspended from Twitch after years of spreading terrorist propaganda on the platform. Fortnite is back on iOS in the US. Nvidia has been outed for even more insane media manipulation. We'll get into the details of that. And Intel is finally looking good for taking Nvidia down a peg or two in the AI space. All that and more coming today on Eagle Eyes on Tech. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, North to AM. Go to bed already. This is Eagle Eyes on Tech. I am Eagle Falcon. We got quite a lot to talk about today. It is the episode after Computex. Computex is done. We got a lot of information out of it, most of it being GPU related. I mean, there's the spoiler for you. This is a GPU focused episode today, but we have a lot of other news, such as this basically breaking news. This actually broke yesterday, or rather last night, as of the time we are recording this, which is Sunday afternoon. And that is involving the Twitch partner, Hasan Abi. If you don't know who Hasan Abi is, congratulations. You're a better person. But I'm going to tell you anyway. Hasan Abi is pretty much one of the biggest political streamers on the Twitch platform. So already, just because I try to stay out of politics as much as I can, you already know my opinion of him is going to be very low. What's even worse is that the guy seems to have some of the worst political takes ever, to the point where he goes ahead and supports terrorist groups. Like, not, oh, they're practically terrorists, or oh, that ragtag group of protesters are going ahead and they're basically terrorists and blah blah blah. No. Like actual violent terrorists, such as Hamas, as well as Hezbollah, as well as the Houthi pirates. He has come out in support of all of them very publicly for years. Like, this guy's about as bad as they come. Like, honestly. Someone in chat asked, what about ISIS? I don't know. I haven't gotten that far back into him, because at some point when you go and investigate a guy, because someone tells you, you know, hey, Mr. Talk Show Head, you should go take a look at this guy if you like streamer drama. There's only so far back you can go before you go, you know, I had enough. But considering the fact that this guy has basically come out and said that the United States of America has deserved 9/11, and has gone out and said that Israel needs to be destroyed, you know, pretty safe to say he probably did support ISIS at one point or another. Like, think of the most wrong take you could have. This guy has probably taken it, including the recent thing where a shooter went and ended a couple that was at a Jewish museum, and the shooter then shouted "Free Palestine" after doing so, to which then he spoke in vague support of the shooter, and then read off the manifesto of the shooter, providing very little opinions on it and no condemnations of the action. This is the kind of guy I could go on and on and on, and I would need to do hours of work to go ahead and collect the receipts that I know are out there on this guy. But I'm a tech podcast, not a political one. The tech angle on this is that finally, this absolute piece of actual garbage on the Twitch platform, who could this guy, because of his opinions and the fact that he is considered one of the biggest streamers on the Twitch platform, very well could be one of the reasons why everyone is seeing fewer and fewer advertisers willing to partner up with Twitch. Because like I said, this has been going on for literal years. So finally, he has been, at the very least, suspended from Twitch for, quote, improper handling of terrorist propaganda, sharing content related to terrorist or violent extremist groups. Examples of violative conduct include, but are not limited to, showing a violent extremist manifesto on stream while denouncing it, or speaking out against terrorist organizations while displaying a recruitment video. These are both not allowed on Twitch. This guy, by the way, violates this rule at least once a week. At least once a week. And gets ignored by Twitch moderation. If you ever want to know one of the biggest reasons why I despise the Twitch moderation, it's this kind of nonsense right here, because this guy can go ahead and continue to do this absolute extreme nonsense on the platform, and someone else gets a 2-week ban because their VTuber avatar boobs are too big, or because a VTuber didn't have an inflatable pool behind them while their model was wearing a bikini, or because an animated dress showed too much hip. It's an insane double standard. It's absolutely insane. The only other time, I want to stress this, the only other time this clown has gotten a suspension is a 20-hour suspension for trying to call for the death of a sitting senator. His actual statement, someone in chat asked which one. Honestly, it doesn't matter. Here's the rational thing when it comes to politics, all right? You should not be calling for the death of any member of any sitting office in any country, period. That is what terrorists do, by definition. I know which one it is. I'll tell you this much, it's a Florida senator. But I don't care whether you're a right winger or a left winger. If you actually believe that the assassination of any senator in the United States is justified, you've lost the plot. That's it, you're gone. You should not, under any circumstances, call for the death of any senator. You can call for the senator to step down. You can demand the resignation of a senator that you believe that their policies are so out of line that they should be, that they should resign, that they should go ahead and step down, that they should be impeached, that they should be recalled. There are plenty of non-violent, civilized ways for the people to speak and voice their opinions that do not involve a bullet. The actual post from Hasan regarding his suspension, which I hope is a permanent suspension, is as follows. I covered the motives of the Israeli embassy staff shooter. Twitch TOS dictates a suspension for even critical examination of the manifesto. Let me interject. He did not critically examine anything. He read the whole thing verbatim and smirked. His comment continues, I believe this is bad policy for news and press freedom. Let me interject. You are on Twitch. You are not press. Let's go over the core concepts of the press, all right? You have journalism, in which you do investigations, present the facts as such, have a neutral position, which is something that American media kind of forgets a lot of the time when it comes to journalism, and then let the listener or viewer draw their own conclusion based on the facts presented. There is being an opinion pundit or an opinion talk show host, which is what I consider myself, who is someone that does do research, provides the facts that they have, and then provides their own opinion. And then there's just whatever Hasan is doing, which as far as I can tell is just making things up, barely taking the facts. Whenever there's any sort of evidence presented, take out one excerpt of it and then invent a new narrative surrounding it. Hasan, you are not news. You are not press. You are a problem. You are a propagandist. And you are giving everyone else a bad name. It then continues to say that he continues to then say, I'll take the suspension, but hope Twitch changes the policy in the future. I hope they don't. I'll be blunt. I hope they don't, and I hope they enforce it harder. Because Hasan, what you're doing is gross. It has been gross for years. And I hope that this suspension is at least a month. I really, really do. Other people have also been saying that this guy has been threatening to move to other platforms. Do it. I want to see how long it takes for Google to completely ban him. I want to see how long it takes for Kick to say, no, we don't want any of that. So yeah, Hasan is currently suspended. Here's the unfortunate thing. It would not surprise me at all that by the time that this podcast airs on Monday, that his account is reinstated. It would not surprise me at all. It would disappoint me. It would disappoint me immensely. But again, it would not surprise me in the least. I do sincerely hope that it is a significant amount of time, preferably permanent. I also do want to state that, you can be right of center or left of center. Like, that's fine. I personally don't care about other people's political affiliation. I start caring when your political beliefs start dictating that other people need to suffer or perish. That's where my line is. So we'll wait. We'll see how this ends up going. I'm actually quickly checking Twitter, see if there actually has been any updated news about this. Although a lot of people have been, I actually did forget to mention that. One of the other reasons why it's believed that his talk about the manifesto finally caught the ear of Twitch, he was finally featured on CNN and condemned by the Anti-Defamation League. And this guy is supposed to be left of center. Like, the guy marks himself as a socialist streamer. Like, he's supposed to be hard left. Like, as hard left as they come. I don't care whether you're left or right of center. You should not take credit for this guy at all. But no, now he's actually being called out on mainstream news too, as being a problem. But yeah, I've hinted about talking about this guy for a while, and there's just never been a good time. And now, well, now boom goes the dynamite. Getting back to actual tech news though, in radically unrelated news, because how do you segue from Hasan? Like, how do you ever, possibly ever, transition from Hasan? You don't. You just physically can't. But Mozilla, the company behind your favorite Fox on Fire, is now discontinuing both Pocket and Fake Spot. The reason being is, well, you can guess. It's unsustainable. The Pocket version of Firefox is gaining no traction, mostly because, let's be honest. There might not be a whole lot that we can agree with the EU in how they're trying to force phone companies to go ahead and do this, that, and the other thing. But there's a couple of things we strongly agree with them with. Making Apple go ahead and switch to USB-C is a big is one of the big things that we can thank the EU for. But when it comes to web browsers, let's be perfectly honest. How many of you even thought about downloading a different web browser on your phone? Like, I'm not even sure if you can even get a different web browser on your phone. Like, you might. Now that I think about it, I think I do remember something about like a kit to let you go and put a new browser on your iPhone. But I think it's still Safari based if you go ahead and do that. But like on your Android device, you never thought about switching off Chrome. No one did. So yeah, Mozilla Firefox for your phone had no chance. It just didn't. Someone in chat says they don't use their browser on their phone as you have a laptop. I'm willing to bet you have used the browser on your phone and just never thought about it. Something like viewing a linked picture in like a Discord channel or something like that. Or, oh, they just said they use it to look up stuff in their game. Yeah, you probably do use the browser on your phone way more often, but that kind of stresses my point. You never think about it. You're just like, whatever, I'll go ahead and look up this guide for a game. Oh, whatever, I'll just quickly look at this picture. Oh, there it is. Okay. And I'd say that's probably a good majority of people who use their web browser on their phone. You don't think about that sort of thing at all. So if you don't even think about, what's the browser on your phone, what chance did Firefox have of getting anyone to go ahead and download a different app for their web browsing on their phone? Yeah, so it shouldn't be a surprise at all that Mozilla Pocket is going away. And Mozilla FakeSpot, I'm not gonna lie, I don't even know what FakeSpot does. I don't think anyone knows what it is. I think it was supposed to be like a reader condenser or something. But yeah, Mozilla's killing two products that nobody used. The end. That's about all there is to it. Speaking of things you do on your phone, you know what's back on iOS? Fortnite. Fortnite is back on the Apple App Store. It is currently #1 in the action category, most likely because it is back. It'll probably fall off relatively quickly, and quite frankly, nobody I know cares, but most of the people I know don't care about Fortnite, like, at all. So, I mean, yeah, Fortnite's back. Apple finally relented. We'll go ahead and see if there's any more advancements in the case. I suspect that it's pretty much just going to wrap up. That's just all there is to it, I think. So that is our latest update. Fortnite is back on iOS. So I think with that, actually, we're going to go ahead and take a break a little early, just because when we come back, we're going to get into more interesting news out of Computex. And I think that little bit of buffer we have for that is going to be very, very helpful. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back. Bonus episodes of the podcast are back. For $2.99 a month, you can go ahead and get an extra 30-minute episode of the podcast each and every week, covering a topic that is very interesting and very in-depth. This week, we're going to be covering the story of Doki Bird's charity auction regarding a custom-built PC and how things didn't go exactly as planned. We're going to go ahead and go very in-depth on that story. Again, you can find that right here on Spotify. It is $3 a month, and we hope to see you there. Welcome back, Eagle Eyes on Tech. I'm Eagle Falcon. All right, so SteamOS. There's a new version of SteamOS. Specifically, this is SteamOS version 3.7. This is going to be focused on, well, bringing SteamOS to not Steam Decks. So instructions have already been published along with version 3.7 of SteamOS, and this is specifically to go ahead and install it on virtually every single Steam Deck competitor out there. The only thing that there are no instructions on how to install it on is the Nintendo Switch. Yet, I kid. But this is actually kind of big. This is now a huge step forward for Valve to actually step outside of their comfort zone and let SteamOS run free. And people going ahead and actually testing this already. This is now a general public release, by the way, as opposed to before when we talked about this update where it was a testing release. This is now general release. This is now out for the public to enjoy, and people are discovering that I was right. Remember every single time I said that I think this handheld is going to suck because Windows is a massive burden on most systems. And when you're talking about a very low powered system on this, you want a very purpose built lightweight operating system like SteamOS, and that's half the magic of the Steam Deck. Lo and behold, I was right. Wow, what a crazy concept. That's crazy. So Are we going to see a whole bunch of people go ahead and take their Windows handhelds, install SteamOS on them, and then just, lo and behold, everything is better for everyone? Probably not. This is going to be something that only like the most adventurous are going to end up doing anyway. But I'm not going to lie. Like, this is big. This is now going to open up. Well, I mean, you know what this is going to really open up? This is going to open up the tinkerers. Anyone who wants to go ahead and try to extend the life of an otherwise obsolete piece of hardware, like the first generations of the Steam Deck competitors, trying to run Windows 11 on that thing, it's cumbersome. Their amount of RAM, it's lacking. It's going to be a burden. But you know what? If all of a sudden the thing that has roughly the same kind of hardware as the Steam Deck can now run the special sauce that made the Steam Deck so special, all of a sudden a piece of hardware that was about to hit the trash has a new lease on life. The old refurbisher in me, the guy who would go ahead and extend the life of just about anything he could get his hands on, it makes that part of me happy. Now, of course, this is going to open up a new Pandora's box. How many things that you shouldn't install SteamOS on can you now install SteamOS on? Maybe we'll even see it get to the point where people who would go ahead and try to install, say, you know, Doom on a toaster might start considering trying to install SteamOS on a whole bunch of things they shouldn't be installing. Hopefully it doesn't get there. I don't need SteamOS to get more bad publicity. Speaking of which, is the battery on my Steam Deck actually good? Nope. I put it to sleep long ago and the battery is dead. Okay. That sounds about right for my Steam Deck. Use it for a bit, put it to sleep, set it aside, forget about it, and the battery's dead. That's pretty par for the course. Meanwhile, though, Xiaomi has now put out its first competitor to the Snapdragon Elite. Now, this is not the Snapdragon, what do they call it? The Snapdragon X or whatever it is, the one that's supposed to compete with the Apple Silicon. This is going to compete in other phones. And the big thing here is that Xiaomi is a major Chinese company, which means that this basically is China's first real attempt to go provide some very stiff competition to the rest of the world. I mean, most people don't care a whole lot about the geopolitical state of China versus everyone, but man, China is determined to go ahead and not rely on anyone else. They want to go ahead and do everything the best and then lie about it. And then I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of sad. It's pretty sad watching them go ahead and put out like an electric car and then say that it does all this stuff, and then when it actually performs, it does like half of what they say, but it's still like a respectable product. And it's like, you know, that's neat, and I would want that. Why the heck do you try to say it goes ahead and grants 3 wishes? You didn't need to go ahead and say it grants 3 wishes. You could have just said it's a very decent electric car for freaking $18,000. Why do you gotta be weird about it? I don't get China sometimes. They could just play nice, but you know, that starts getting to the geopolitical space of things, and as much as I do know more than the average person, I don't know enough to make an intelligent conversation about it. But there you go. We got some real competition to the Snapdragon. I'll be very curious to see how well it performs compared to the Snapdragon. I strongly suspect, you know what's going to end up being? It is going to end up being very similar to Apple Silicon versus x86 processors, where everyone goes, oh my God, x86 is doomed. It's all over. And it turns out that it's just, yeah, it's really power efficient, but in certain tasks, the Apple Silicon chip just falls flat on its face, and you'd want x86 anyway. And it's basically impossible to compare the two. I suspect it might be something very similar to that, where it's like great for battery life, but absolutely abysmal for like gaming performance or hardware acceleration or encoding or something like that. That's usually how these sort of things end up going when push comes to shove. By the way, it's time to talk about everyone's favorite doom and gloom topic, AI. Oh yes, we got a lot of AI news because we had both Computex and Google I/O. I'm just gonna save you the trouble. Google I/O. How do I summarize Google I/O? AI, 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 AI. There you go. You're now caught up on Google I/O. It was all AI, all of it. This should surprise you not at all. Are you sick of hearing me say AI? Too bad. We're now in this for the long haul. Let's actually start with pretty much the biggest thing that was noteworthy over at Google I/O, and that's the fact that their new AI video tool is terrifyingly good. And I do mean terrifyingly good. Their new VO3 engine, I could tell that some of the clips they demonstrated were AI generated, but it's only because I was very specifically looking for certain audio cues. And I'm a guy who intentionally, very, very, very intentionally tries to look for this stuff. This thing is so good at what it does. There's going to be tons of people that are going to be fooled by this blasted thing. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They successfully made an entire movie, or rather an entire movie trailer, about people denying that they were made from prompts. There's footage out there of people playing video games completely indistinguishable from actual streamers playing the stuff. There's an entire fake pharmaceutical ad, completely unreal. And I first thought it was just like a parody that was made by people. No, AI freaking generated. It's nuts. It is insane how quickly we went from horrid abominations to kind of artsy mistakes to now something that could very easily pass off as made by people. It would not be outside of the realm of possibility for someone to just figure that these were made by people. And while some people will go ahead and use this to make memes or something creative or anything like that, I guarantee you there's going to be people that use this technology to pull off some kind of fraud. I guarantee it. Someone's going to use it to commit some kind of fraud. And that has me go from this is really interesting to this is really concerning very, very quickly. So we'll have to see how things go with this, but man, it's scary how good it is. Now, of course, the question is, how much does it cost to do this? Well, Google right now has 2 different per month AI programs. They have Google AI Pro, which includes their Gemini app with 2.5 Pro and VO2, and then Flow with VO2, Whisk with VO2, a whole bunch of things, and 2 terabytes of storage. This is all for $20 a month, which, it could be good. It's not bad. To get their newest stuff, to get this VO3, this incredibly hyper-realistic, I shouldn't say hyper-realistic, but this extremely convincing, realistic video maker, it costs $250 a month. Wow. Someone asked, does it cost the energy output of a small country? I don't know, but I have to assume the answer is yes. Right now, Google AI Ultra is only available in the US today, rolling out to other countries soon. Please, I don't want this to sound horribly racist, but please delay the rollout to Nigeria and India for very last. I know that sounds awful. To say, but holy smokes, this is going to be awful in the hands of the Indian call center scammers. Now, I know there's plenty of people who would be very creative and have true, pure intentions in Nigeria and India. I understand that. I totally get it. But holy smokes, I truly do fear what scammers are going to go ahead and come. You know what? Actually, it doesn't even matter because they're just going to go ahead and find some way around it anyway. Someone in chat says, or the Nigerian princes. I mean, it doesn't matter, man. I've already got myself locked in. I'm already locked into the current Nigerian prince's will. I already, and you know, once my monthly payments of $5,000 a week are sent over, man, I am going to be filthy rich once that all goes through. For full disclosure, do not answer to any emails that say they're from a Nigerian prince. It is all a scam. There is no Nigerian prince that you're related to. I have to say that for both for honesty's sake and just in case nobody understands that I am in fact sarcasm incarnate. You just always got to be concerned with that. You always gotta. Meanwhile, while that's going on over in the Google land, we do have Microsoft trying to make, quote, safer agentic future on Windows. The whole point of this is here's the very short version. Windows wants to make AI assistants control more on your computer. That is its goal. All right. Hear me out, Microsoft. I have a better idea. Shut the F up and let me go do my work on my computer. I gotta get a lot done. And your Windows constantly randomly updating, disabling certain parts of my sound system that I spend hours to make sure works properly with my freaking podcasting setup is beyond infuriating. I don't need you to install AI powered spyware to go ahead and tell me how to use my own computer better. Screw off. I don't need my operating system to think for me. I need my operating system to be the foundation of my blasted computer. You want to know why people hate you, Microsoft, right now? It's this stuff right here. It's the fact that you think you can use my computer better than I can. It's because you think because my computer is a touch older that it should be thrown out and that you know better. That it has no future, despite the fact that it is 24 cores that function perfectly fine, along with 64 gigabytes of RAM and plenty of room for expansion. But you know best, so I should throw it out. But you know best, so I should go ahead and just let my sound system be disabled by your update. That I should just go ahead and think that, oh yeah, my keyboard disconnecting and reconnecting randomly every 30 seconds for 20 minutes is perfectly fine. Get the basics of your freaking operating system down first. And then maybe, just maybe, I'll hear you out about your stupid AI agent going ahead and maybe using the computer better than I can. Because holy cow, as much as I continue to keep telling people Mac is not the better option, but you know what? At least Mac respects its users enough to let them just go do their work. Legitimately right now, Windows is very quickly becoming the worst operating system for professionals to use. Period. Bar none. And then people who aren't professionals that just want to go ahead and do work, you know what they're doing? They're switching to using their phones and tablets on a regular basis because the desktop's becoming too intimidating because of all the random nonsense you're injecting. We have tolerated a lot of nonsense from Vista to 7 to 8 to 10, but 11 is very quickly becoming the straw that is going to break everyone's backs. And I do legitimately wonder, what is it going to take for main enterprise America to dump Windows and start training on how to use Ubuntu? So no, we don't want AI agents. We want an operating system that treats us with some bloody respect. I'm pretty sure I just went on that tirade without swearing once. Meanwhile, though, in more AI news, OpenAI is now getting a lot more serious about hardware, but Someone in chat said it depends. Once the trend starts, bad guys will just start targeting Linux. That's the thing, though. It's a lot. First off, it's hard to target Linux because Linux is just the kernel. There are thousands upon thousands of different operating systems with all different vulnerabilities because of the way they're made. But let's say one is adopted as like the granddaddy of them all. Let's say Ubuntu. And I just say Ubuntu because Ubuntu has like one of the most familiar OS layouts of all Linux. I'm sure any other Linux guy out there is me like, oh no. Debian is the way you want to go for Linux for the everyday person, or oh no, you want to go Arch Linux, or oh you want to go this or that, or some other ones. I don't know that many Linux versions off the top of my head, but I'm sure some Linux guy's gonna call me an idiot for mentioning Ubuntu or any of the other ones I just mentioned. But even if they start then targeting that, there's going to then be companies that then jump on board of doing general patching of those operating systems, or or coming up with malware scanners specifically for those systems. And the thing is also, you want to know how you go ahead in a corporate environment and protect your computers, whether it's Linux, Mac, or any flavor of Linux or Windows. If I didn't say Windows, you train them to not open any kind of suspicious email. That is how 90% of every single one of these horrible hacks or horrible attacks on corporations happen. It's not through some backdoor. It's not through some vulnerability on the operating system. It is almost always through some kind of Trojan. Someone in chat says all it'll take for someone to find a very painful loop between the hardware and Linux, and someday Corp America will just flee back to Microsoft. I don't believe that's true. Want to know why I don't believe that's true? Because people would have fled Microsoft dozens of times over if they were that scared of a loophole in the hardware and Linux. Because that sort of loophole between hardware and Windows has existed for decades. The hardest hurdle is going to be to convince an entire enterprise to switch off Microsoft. That is the biggest hurdle by far. And I think Microsoft is getting closer and closer to making people want to go ahead and take that plunge. Meanwhile, OpenAI has struck a deal with Johnny Ive's design company to go ahead and work on AI related hardware. Now, here's the thing, right? This headline first read as $6.5 billion deal with OpenAI to develop hardware. My first thought was, okay, it's OpenAI trying to go ahead and develop chips specifically for the data centers that power OpenAI's everything. But here's the thing. It now involves Johnny Ive. Johnny Ive, if you've never heard of the guy, he is the guy responsible for almost all of Apple's legendary computer designs. Johnny Ive was responsible for the original iMac. He has been responsible for just about every single iMac that's ever existed, the MacBooks until recently, the iPhone, the iPad. Just about every single iconic design has been because of Johnny Ive. And recently, I'd say Apple has been kind of slacking in the design department. Like nowadays, not too many people are excited about, ooh, the latest iPhone has a different curve on it. Ooh, like almost nobody cares. But Ive was like one of the ones that had like the external antennas that needed a clear coat on them so that you didn't short the antennas. Whoops. But that iconic design, he was the one that still managed to get headphone jacks onto phones that kept getting thinner and thinner. He was the one that made the MacBook Air, the original, that looked impossibly thin. Like nowadays, the MacBook Air just looks like, oh, it's a slightly thinner laptop than normal. Neat. The original MacBook Air, because it came to a point on every side, it gave the illusion of looking like a folded piece of paper. Like you can love or hate Apple all you want for the way they operate, but god dang, did Johnny Ives work for Apple actually make you jealous that you were on a black brick of a laptop? Because back then, Apple looked gorgeous. Now, Johnny Ive parted ways with Apple about 10 years ago. Johnny Ive then started his own design company. They've worked with many other companies for kind of outlandish designs. And, well, now OpenAI has hired Johnny Ive's company to design who knows what for OpenAI. I'm very curious to know what this is. Because the thing is that OpenAI, like, almost exclusively makes software. They don't make much else. It's just all software. So we'll have to wait and see what exactly comes out of OpenAI for this. We're going to take a break here. When we come back, Nvidia and why you don't hate them enough. We'll be back. Welcome back, Eagle Eyes on Tech. I'm Eagle Falcon. All right, so as I said in the title, you really don't hate Nvidia enough. And I want to stress something when I say hate. That doesn't mean that you should wish violence upon them. I don't think violence is okay ever. But you know, a lot of the world agrees with that. But I want to stress that as I start using this strong language here, because Nvidia is now going out of their way to try and use new extreme methods to manipulate the independent media to their benefit. So last time where we left off this kind of story was with the RTX 5060 Ti. To get people caught up, Nvidia went ahead and tried to manipulate the media into talking only about the good card and not the bad card. With the RTX 5060 Ti, there were two versions of the card under the same name. By the way, a practice I think should land them in a lawsuit, because it is intentionally trying to be, you know, deceptive to the audience. They're intentionally trying to deceive people. There's no other way to look at this and say, yeah, no, I totally see what they're going to do. No, that's easy to understand. It's totally fine. It's not. It's not. This isn't okay. Not in any way, shape, or form. Especially since the RTX 5060 Ti had both an 8GB version and a 16GB version. And only the 16GB version was worth considering. The 8GB version was so badly gimped because of its RAM, it was a significant performance downgrade. So what Nvidia did is that their reviewers never saw the 8GB variant. They only got the 16GB variant. So on launch day that had both the 8GB and 16GB variants, the only reports that would exist for this card is the better card out there. But there's two cards with two different price points. A setup that is blatantly obviously trying to make it so that the consumer sees reviews of the decent card and assumes the cheaper card is going to perform just as well. By the way, it didn't. It is an intentional act of deception, in my opinion. But I mean, if it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, and tries to attack me for my loaf of bread like a duck, guess what? Chances are it's a duck. This brings us to the newest card that has just launched, the 5060. The 5060 launched during Computex. This is not uncommon, all right? Nvidia launching a card during Computex is, I'd say, expected. What isn't expected is that nobody got review drivers to review the card until launch day. So all the reviewers are at Computex. Almost no one, and I have to say almost no one because one insane person did review the card while at Computex, that being Hardware Unboxed. Those people are insane. But the week leading up to Computex, when the reviewers would normally be testing the cards with the review drivers, they couldn't, because Nvidia didn't release the review drivers until the day the card launched. In which case, by the way, they're no longer review drivers, they're public drivers. So it blatantly looks like Nvidia tried to go ahead and silence the media from providing an accurate report of what these cards can do before their launch. All right, but you might be thinking, Eagle, this isn't new. You already reported on this. What's the deal? Because what I said is not completely true. Some reviewers did get the review drivers. Those same media outlets had to agree to publishing a card preview in order to receive said drivers that had to go ahead and talk about very specific talking points that Nvidia had for this preview, specifically covering the benchmarks that these cards were able to perform in very specific circumstances, and then also agree to have these cards include Nvidia's multi-frame gen technology in their review. Nvidia has been caught trying to directly influence an independent reports and review of their product. Now, the reason they do this is fairly obvious, but we're going to go over it anyway, just in case you don't know. These Nvidia cards, the 5000 series, their performance is shockingly close to the previous gen. The 5000 series is almost exactly the same as the 4000 series, maybe a little bit better performance per watt, but otherwise the difference is negligible. The biggest difference, though, is in the way the 5000 series performs in AI workloads, and also the fact that the 5000 series supports what Nvidia calls multi-frame gen, which has the AI portion of the card generate 3 frames of the game to every one actually rendered frame of the game. So for every one actual frame of the game you're playing, 3 of the frames after that are guesses as to what the AI thinks is about to happen in the game. They are quite literally fake frames. Now, the end result might not matter in some circumstances, but the thing is that not every game supports this technology. And in games where you want super high frame rates, an AI guess is going to be the difference between success and failure. This technology, in my opinion, is a straight up gimmick. And it might be good on games that you could barely run in the first place, so why not? It might be useful in that regard. But the thing is that Nvidia wants to go ahead and push this narrative that that is real performance, that these fake frames actually are the real treasure of the cards, and that's why they're able to go ahead and hit numbers like 200 frames per FPS on certain games when everyone else says no, it's 50. It is in my and many of the media's opinions that trying to go ahead and say that multi-frame gen frames should be the actual performance of the card is straight up lying to the consumer. But Nvidia wants to push this narrative because, of course, it makes their competitors of AMD and Intel look like they're not even in the running as they go ahead and put out cards that are basically the exact same performance. Oh, but this gets better. You thought that just this little detail is all I had on why you should hate Nvidia more? Oh, no. We haven't even begun. Because not only have we had Nvidia go ahead and try to manipulate the release of drivers, try to go ahead and hinder reviews, but they have straight up tried to use their own engineers, media outlets that want to go ahead and try to interview their engineers as bargaining chips for these media outlets to go ahead and push the narrative that Nvidia wants. Gamers Nexus has now put out a 40-minute, I would call it a hit piece, but it's more of a screed of how livid they are that they got told straight up that if they want to go ahead and produce interesting articles regarding Nvidia engineers and the cooling solutions they're coming up with, that they have to push the narrative that multi-frame gen is real performance. This is gross. There's no other way to say this. This is gross. I can't stress it enough that this generation of card, the RTX 50 series, which I'm pretty sure is now done. I'm fairly certain we're not going to see a 5050 Ti. We're not going to see an RTX 5050 either, which is a shame because holy cow, we could use some affordable cards. We can use cards that are sub $400. But the fact that Nvidia continues to go ahead and pull these stunts, and quite frankly, their behavior now recently does have me think that they don't have a production issue. They might be intentionally trying to restrict their own supply to give the illusion that they're selling out like nobody's business and just letting all that chip capacity go to their AI side. I now fully expect that. I know it goes against my hard belief in Heron's razor, but by God, if they're willing to go ahead and use their own staff as bargaining chips to go ahead and prohibit their own staff from going ahead and talking about their work in their own free time in their attempt to manipulate the media, what isn't below Nvidia? What line won't Nvidia cross? I actually do have to ask. Where's the line? What aren't you willing to do? So, I mean, let's review all this, okay? We have the 5090 that catches fire. We have the 5080 that could never be in stock and never hit its MSRP. Not to mention the 5090 never met its MSRP. Also, the 5080 caught fire too. We have the 5070 that's supposed to have the performance of a 4090. It never came even remotely close to the 4090, by the way. We have the 5060 Ti that, you know, had the wonderful curse of having two different models under the same name, but we're not going to differentiate the two all that well and try to obfuscate how good each one is and manipulate the reviews out there so that you might accidentally buy the wrong card, not knowing, intentionally creating confusion in the space. We have the 5060 that also suffers from media manipulation, also is a terrible buy because it doesn't have enough RAM to support itself, but also because it's a cheap card. If you try to go ahead and put it into an older machine, it's going to suck even harder because they restricted the bandwidth to only 8x. So if you're not on PCI Express Gen 5 and only on PCI Express Gen 4, it's going to bottleneck even harder and be even worse of a performer because you had the audacity to try and go ahead and upgrade an older PC you're running. Not to mention during all of this, they can't seem to get a driver right. So tons of computers that are supposed to be gaming on these cards can't function correctly. That one I think is less malice and more of them being stupid. That's the only one where I think Heron's razor applies, is the massive, colossal, repeating driver issues these cards have had. So I look at all that. And wonder, why do I put up with Nvidia? Why do we do this to ourselves? I've got two Nvidia cards in my systems right now. What do you think the odds are that they're replaced with another Nvidia card? Here's a spoiler for you. The answer is very low. I don't know what would replace them if they ever go bad, but a lot is going to have to be done for Nvidia to repair the damage they've done. Because by God, the trust between Nvidia and the gamer space is at an all-time low. And I don't know how you repair it. I really don't. I think Nvidia might be better off just doing what they clearly want to do in the first place and just become a data center card company. Just make cards for the data center. That's all you clearly care about. You don't even care about workstations. That's how bad this is. And unfortunately, Nvidia's manipulativeness does extend to AMD, because AMD has announced the new RX 9060 XTs. They announced that at Computex, and it's a better performance per dollar than the RTX 5060. So we do have that going on. But here's the problem. There's two versions of the RX 9060 XT. There's an 8 gigabyte 9060 XT and a 16 gigabyte version. There's a 16 and 8 gig version of this card. They're called exactly the same. They just have the amount of RAM on it different. At least they didn't go ahead and put 8x bus on this card so that if you put it in an older system, you are immediately suffering. So, I mean, I guess there's at least that. And I'll buy the Radeon card before I buy the Nvidia one. But holy smokes, do you really have to go ahead and do the one thing I just went ahead and hate about the 5060 Ti? Really? The 9060 XT is not out yet. It will be fairly soon. I cannot wait to see the reviews on this to go ahead and judge, but stop playing this game of trying to trick us into buying cards we don't want. That's all most of us want. It's just aggravating. Stop. Just stop. So yeah, I'm glad AMD has a card out there that's more affordable, but man, piss off. Stop with the deceptive practices. If you're going to go ahead and have different amounts of RAM on it, call it a different card. Meanwhile, though, Intel is eyeing up Nvidia where it hurts the most. They're eyeing up the professional cards, the data center cards, the workstation cards. We now have Intel Arc Pro B50 and B60 that are going to be lower cost professional GPUs specifically for AI workloads. These cards are looking at being a couple $100s per, which, considering Nvidia wants somewhere in the ballpark of thousands for their AI cards, this is huge. What's going to really matter, though, is how well do they perform by comparison. And the thing is that when it comes to AI workloads, multi GPUs working together with a shared RAM is paramount. And AMD kind of does this well. Nvidia does this extremely well. Well, Intel also now has a solution for this. This is specifically for workloads, also going to be coming to, of course, their servers as well. What they're calling Project Battle Matrix. This is specifically so without any sort of external bridges, no SLI connectors, no whatever the heck else Nvidia calls their stuff. They had a different name. It was like an interconnect or something. I can't remember what it is. Without any sort of external bridges, just over the PCI Express bus, up to 8 Intel Pro cards can communicate with her for up to a combined 192 gigabytes of VRAM. Now, unfortunately, it's going to be mostly focused on the PCI Express Gen 5 Intel Xeon platform, as opposed to being compatible with AMD. I'm not too surprised there. There may be AMD support coming down the road to pair up with those EPYC processors. Here's the thing, though. When it comes to AI workloads, nobody cares about the CPU. Virtually no one. It's kind of ironic, right? AMD right now is the king in the enterprise CPU space, unless you're willing to use many core. If you're willing to use many core, then ARM wins. There's just no getting around that. You can just put so many little 16 core ARM chips on a board that 960 core, or I'm sorry, 96 core EPYC processor just can't compete. So the fact that it's on Xeon, which I think is only up to 56 cores or whatever, that's irrelevant, to be perfectly honest. Because almost all AI workloads are on the GPU and on the VRAM. That's what's most important. So, I mean, you combine this with the Intel B cards that they're looking to go ahead and get some flexibility on this, making multiple different models of this with their board partners. You know, all of a sudden, small businesses wanting to get into the AI space to come up with something interesting with this technology that's constantly overhyped looks way, way better. And quite frankly, I do want to see what people come up with AI. on a local level, not with some mega data center sucking up 6 New York cities worth of power to go ahead and make Will Smith eat spaghetti. I want to see what a localized, low powered, comparatively, AI can do. I think that's gonna be far more interesting than everyone to go ahead and give big tech companies an excuse to go ahead and harvest more data from what they try to do. Because that's all these big data centers are going to do. They're going to do exactly that. Also, Intel revealed they are going to be making a brand new higher end GPU. This is going to be the Arc B770. This on paper would compete with the RTX 5070. You know, Intel's not the best person to go ahead and be out there with. You know, like right now, every single tech company out there has its pros and cons. But man, I never thought I'd be rooting for Intel GPUs. You've done it. You now have me rooting for Intel GPUs. Bravo. You did it. You have my full attention. Good job, Intel. Good job. Meanwhile, though, let's quickly go over some of the weirder stuff over at CES. Computex. Computex, not CES. Computex. We got more weird stuff at Computex, such as this one company that just decided, you know, what if we threw a tablet on a water block? Just straight up. Like, you can't make this up. But I'm not going to say that someone really wants to do this, to go ahead and have another screen directly on their water block inside the computer. But by God, if you want to go ahead and do that, you can do that for some reason. It's just Computex things, man. It's just Computex things. Kind of like MediaTek and their new massive Omega wide screen display specifically for a car. Just one long screen specifically to be infotainment, gauge cluster, and everything you'd want combined into one seamless screen. That is a real thing that now really exists. That's probably not ready for prime time, but it is something they're considering. Then, of course, we have Asus showing off a 610 hertz refresh display monitor that I debate whether people would be able to notice it or not. Maybe someone does. I don't know. Acer is making smart rings that can now detect your mood as well as take health measurements. So there's that. Acer also made earbuds that can translate in real time. I'll be very curious to see if those get tested with any sort of actual accuracy to them. I'm not going to lie, I kind of doubt it. MSI, of course, made a new Steam Deck competitor. That's no surprise there. Asus made a keyboard that splits in half, but then made the claim that's going to make gaming easier. Spoiler alert, it won't. InWin made a computer case that is completely out there with a built-in motor in it to lift and close the side panel on it. If you so decide to do that, it's just Computex, man. This is what Computex is all about. The really weird stuff. And also the stuff that no one ever thought they'd want. Asus brings out a 3,000 watt power supply, a power supply that literally will not function in North America unless you go ahead and make a 240 volt circuit specifically for it. Good luck. It's not even like it needs 2 plugs or anything on a normal outlet. It needs its own 240 volt circuit. It needs 240 volts to go into it. And 110 is limited to 1500 watts. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. Huawei also unveiled a super, and I do mean super thin 18-inch tablet that folds. And this whole thing is supposed to function as a laptop. And it's going to be thinner than your phone. Remember how last week I said who actually wants a thin phone? Who wants a thin laptop? Even though I just talked about how people wanted the like seemingly razor thin MacBook Air. Well, Huawei said they could top that, and apparently they did. So yeah, we have that as well. That's a real thing that's really out there. And then finally, ladies and gentlemen, I bring you the last bird of the last story of the day, the weirdest story of the week. This one I'm gonna admit, not as weird as it could have been. But I do give you the wired skeleton mouse with a built-in cooling fan to cool your sweaty, smelly gamer palms on this mouse, which I hope none of your hand sweat drips into the fan or anything shorts in it. But you know what? If your hand smells, good news. The fan in this mouse may help deodorize your hand by spreading your hand stink to the rest of the room. I mean, I can see the benefits of a fan built in the mouse. The wild thing to me is that it's a Noctua fan. Noctua fans are well known for being very high performance and very low noise. And I do mean that, very low noise. So how is this going to work for them? I don't know. Is this a good idea? I don't know. I honestly don't get the whole skeletal mice sort of things, because I'll be honest, I use an MMO mouse. People who watch me stream at twitch.tv/EagleFalcon, they know this all too well. All right? They know this. And even though it's a solid mouse, meaning there's no holes or anything on it, gunk builds up. It's normal. Your hand sweats. Even with a fan on it, the various oils and stuff on your hands are going to deposit onto the mouse. A lot of these like honeycomb mice that just have perforations and holes everywhere on the mouse, I am afraid to see them after months of nobody cleaning them, because there's going to be so much crud that builds up. But you know what? At least, hey, you got a fan on this one that's gonna do something to help you out. Folks, that is going to do it for this episode of Eagle Eyes on Tech. Thank you so much for listening. I do encourage you to check out my other works, youtube.com/EagleFalcon, and my streams over at twitch.tv/EagleFalcon. We record this live. As I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast and kind of in the middle of it, we are opening back up bonus episodes of the podcast on a subscription base. We're going to be doing those weekly, and I hope you enjoy yourself. This week, we're going to be talking about the Doki Bird computer scandal. Take care, and I hope you have a great week. Bye-bye. I do wonder at some point, is anyone ever going to address the fact that all this stuff just builds up on these mice? Like, I can't get over that. All right. I just switched mice, so now I could go do a deep cleaning on the other one. The cloth was filthy. And then on these like honeycomb ones with all these crevices and openings to reduce the weight because it's better for the thing. Like, I know I'm not like the most like neat freak or anything, but holy smokes, that's gotta be an absolute nightmare to clean. I really do want to hear from people on this. I don't know, maybe the fan will help with that. Ooh. What if we combine the fan with like a little spritzer of hand sanitizer? Nah, I think that might short out the mouse. We can make this work. The self-cleaning mouse is just gonna be really, really stupid.